Hey everybody, welcome back to History of Westeros podcast. It's season 6 time. I hope you guys are excited because we are, and it's only 15 days away as of this recording. So it's time to get hype if you aren't already. Welcome back, Ashaya. Good to have you back with us. Ashaya's going to be our moderator today, handling the questions as well as answering some along the way too. And of course, we are joined by our friends from Radio Westeros. Say hello, Lady Gwen and Yoke Boy.
Hello there.
Hi, glad to be back.
Right on. It's very good to have you guys again. Radio Westeros has been up to their usual business. They've put out a recent pair of episodes on Littlefinger. Really good stuff. You should check it out if you haven't. And of course, our recent episodes on Ashaya and our season 6 preview for show viewers have been put out recently as well. So, a couple more announcements before we get started. We want to get started as soon as possible. We got to take care of a little bit of business first. The function of this episode and episodes like it during the season, it's a little tricky because spoilers have changed. What's a spoiler now? You know, even differentiating show spoilers and book spoilers is one thing, but now we have casting spoilers, there's leaks occasionally. It's just such a hard thing. And the books and show have diverged so much. We're not going to treat anything in the show like it's going to happen in the book, with maybe a few exceptions. Things have diverged so much. It's really its own animal, but that doesn't mean there aren't connections and parallels and things we can't learn from the two about the other. So this is also going to function as a bit of a support group. To explain that, what I mean is a lot of people are bummed out that The Winds of Winter isn't out yet and that the books may get a little spoiled because of the show. So part of what we're going to do this season, today and throughout the season, is to kind of ruminate on that whole business and decide whether the show is spoiling the books or not, and to kind of come to grips with all that. It was something suggested by our very first Patreon supporter, Liz Egrek, Lady Dire Liz of Castle Naki. And we thought about doing it last year, but couldn't really put it together. Now, however, now it's when it's necessary. Now is when we're really past the books, and we got to start to figure out the difference between these two canons and get that all straight in our heads. I occasionally find myself getting confused on very small lines and say, was that the book or the show? And occasionally that happens, not very often, but occasionally. So, real quick, one other thing, the story of our intro. We have we got the questions about the intro and where it came from, and of course it's awesome. You know, we can say that we didn't create it, so we can pat ourselves on the back without taking credit for it.
Yeah, our friend Michael Clarfeld, Claradox, he has a website which will be linked in the description. He has a DeviantArt. I saw him working on a Westeros map last year or something like that. And I, of course, commented because it was gorgeous. It's this one right here.
Yeah, right there.
And I just kept commenting, and we got to talking about stuff, and he was printing out some for his friends, and so he sent me one. And then I asked him, when I knew we were going to a convention, I asked if he'd want a copy of his map signed. And, of course, yeah, he would.
Who would want their map signed by George R. R. Martin?
We forgot to switch out our map again. We have a signed copy of this map, too, and we don't have it hanging up. But anyways, we sent it on over to him. Next thing we knew, he sent us a message saying he made us an intro video. He was making one just using that map, and our only request was that our music by Joey Townsend was in it.
So that was that was our only input in it. So
so he used Cybass Pieces by Dutch Mogul, which is linked on Thingiverse in the description. You can 3D print your own Cybass game if you wanted to, if you have a 3D printer. Sounds pretty cool to me.
So if you are normally a listener to us on iTunes, because I know more than half of our audience is audio only, you haven't seen our cool intro. So come check it out. We've posted it as a standalone on our YouTube channel. It's 48 seconds or so, and it's just really sweet. So if you get a minute, check it out. Literally a minute is all it takes. One more thing before we start. We have been making a few changes to our Patreon campaign. In the past, for $2 a month, you could get your name on our website, as well as all episodes 1 day early. From now on, it's 2 days early. So there you go, a little benefit booster. If you want to sign up to support the show, $2 a month gets you that. We've got a lot of other levels as well. Check
That's
those
true,
out.
by the way, for all episodes except for these show episodes.
That's right. These will be posted as soon as we finish them.
Time sensitive.
They're too time sensitive. We can't hold on to them for too long, or the next episode comes out and it's too late. So it doesn't work for these. But for all our regular episodes, that applies. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get to the questions. One thing about how the questioning works. If you have asked us questions outside of this app, we probably won't get to them. There's a lot of questions in the app, and that's where we prefer to have them, because if you're watching on YouTube, you can see here that the questions are posted. You can upvote them, and that way everyone gets to see what's there. So if you've asked us questions outside of the app, sorry, we're probably not going to answer them, although somebody may have asked a similar question, so you may get your question answered that way. But if you want to get answered questions in the future, go to the event page. There's the video player sitting right there, squarely in the middle of the screen, and there's a little Q&A button in the upper right. Press that button. That's where the questions can be asked and upvoted. Yeah. So, without any further ado, let us get started.
Yeah, I think our first question will be a bit of a round-robin question.
Yes.
I'm going to go with this question by Jeff Hartline of Wars and Politics of Ice and Fire, who we've had on the show. He asks, Stoneheart? Stoneheart.
We have various opinions here. Why don't you go ahead, Ashaya, and give yours?
I'm not getting my hopes up. I don't think that they would have Stoneheart after they called her pointless. They called that point pointless, and I think they just wouldn't have talked about it at that point. So I just don't want to get my hopes up.
That's a fair point, and I think if we're being optimistic, that what you're saying was them deflecting and maybe trying to conceal what they were going to do later. Some people might think it's odd to have Stoneheart this late in the game, but this is the season we're going to get the Riverlands plot. It would make sense that they would put that during the time where we're actually going to the Riverlands. Jaime's going to go there, possibly other characters as well. Just like the Tower of Joy scene, you would have expected it maybe to be in season 1. That's when it parallels happening in the books, but they bumped it all the way to season 6 because it's paired up with Jon's death. More on that later, of course. A lot of questions relating to Jon.
Yeah, so let's move on. Lady Gwyn, what do you think about Stoneheart?
Well, I think Aziz made a good point. You know, this is where we would logically expect to see this happen because of what we know about Riverlands arcs coming back. I hear what you're saying, Ashaya. Yeah, I don't really have a lot of hope, but we have seen them do these sort of mental, or not really mental, but verbal gymnastics trying to get around plot spoilers before with other things, including some things for this season. So you never know. Just fingers crossed, maybe.
Yo, boy, what about you? Hopeful, yay or nay?
I would obviously love it. I think that it would have to be the best kept secret ever, wouldn't it? Because you've got people who are like climbing, hiding in forests to take pictures of the set and stuff. So if
drones are going in there,
yeah, it would be the best kept secret ever. But having said that, I mean, if there's going to be a Riverlands plot this season and it's going to revolve around some kind of revenge on Walder Frey, it just doesn't really make sense without Lady Stoneheart to me. So I would say that, I disagree that she's pointless, and like you said, they could have been kind of trying to get around it. But I don't know. I put myself in the middle. I'm not very hopeful, but I think she will be important. So they should include her. Let's say.
Well, nothing to do but wait and see, I suppose. We'll probably know within the next 6 to 8 weeks. Probably won't be at the end of the season if it happens. Probably mid-season.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to this question by Mnit B, who says, Bran with Night's King. What are your thoughts on that scene? It's probably him having a vision and the Night's King sensing it. But I have an even more interesting theory, which is that Bran's training has progressed so far that he is warging a White Walker. Thoughts? Right? Who should I go to first? Let's go to you, Aziz, I guess.
Okay. Well, I think that on the surface, the idea of Jon or anyone, Bran or anyone rather, warging into a White Walker, I find that a little bit unlikely, and here's why. It seems like from the Varamir spoiler chapter, rather the Varamir prologue chapter, that the dumber the animal, or the less stubborn the animal, not necessarily intelligence, the more they are open to skin changing. In other words, he says that the wolves and dogs are the easiest because they're already close to men. and some of the other animals are harder. And this applies more to the concept of Bran perhaps warging into a dragon, skin changing into a dragon, which is something that people have predicted. If he can do that, then maybe, but I even question that possibility. He can do Hodor, but only because Hodor is, he's not all there. He doesn't have his full mental faculties. So I think a White Walker is too powerful, too magical, too ancient, too strong-minded for that sort of thing. But I do think we'll see Bran up his game, so to speak, in terms of who he's able to slip into. What do you guys think? Any other thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it would be a quick end to the White Walkers if Bran could just warg them all.
Good point.
That's a good point. They could make them fight each other. Hey guys, look what I can do. I can make White Walkers.
No, but a good talking point from that scene is that doesn't the White Walker kind of hold Bran's arm in one of the short clips that was released?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good talking point. I mean, what's that supposed to insinuate? Are we supposed to wonder if Bran could end up in league with these creatures, or is this the insinuation, or are they going to be mortal enemies? What do you guys think about that?
Well, that's a tough one. I think that one thing for sure from that scene we can be almost 99% sure of there is that it's some sort of dream or vision, because Bran, frankly, is standing. That kind of gives that away. So, but yeah, being grabbed though, that means he's not fully in control of what's happening. I don't think he's just
I think this ties into our next question, which I'm going to go to and read out loud, and we'll continue this conversation.
Okay, perfect.
This is by Helene May, and she says, what are your thoughts about the White Walkers apparently being in the Werewood Cave in the making of video about prosthetics for Game of Thrones? Do you think that the image of the Night's King standing before a blazing fire from the trailer is a related scene? All right, I'm going to go to you, Lady Gwyn, if you have any thoughts on these White Walkers.
No, not really. I mean,
No.
it is. I think it's just super hard to tell, and to draw conclusions from the making of video.
All right.
Not sure.
Then
The difference between whether it's a dream sequence or real is really hard to tell. And that, if those prosthetics if we're seeing the White Walkers in a cave, well, is that a dream or is that real?
Right.
It's all the Bran sequences are kind of hard to figure that way, because you can't tell if they're dream, vision, or actually what's happening.
Right. If you don't get the Bran, external shot of Bran, it's almost impossible to tell.
Yeah, but I think that we're going to see some sort of interaction, maybe physical interaction between, if not Bran and the White Walkers, maybe Mira, because Mira's got to do something. I don't think she's just going to chill in the tree with Bran. She's got nothing to do.
Right.
Maybe she leaves and heads back to the wall, tries to get back to civilization to tell people what's happening, or to go find her father or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see her sitting still for the whole season. Yeah.
Howland Reed has got a lot to answer for when he shows up, I think.
He does. Like, we've been waiting for you, man. What the heck? Have we got questions for you?
Mm-hmm.
all right, then I'm going to move on to another question related to this subject.
Speaking of questions for us.
Yeah, by Wilkins75. Do you think that the three-eyed raven in the show will explain that he is Brynden Rivers, Blood Raven, and maybe some of his backstory? Maybe even see Dark Sister if he has it. Well, we would love that, certainly.
We would love to see Dark Sister. That would be really cool. It would be not in the books, but in the show. That would be that would be unusual.
Anyone?
I would say that the chances of getting an extended Bloodraven backstory are very remote. But surely the three-eyed raven must explain to Bran how he got to the cave, and ease his curiosity. Surely there's going to be some backstory to explain how the hell this guy is in the state he's in. So I would expect something, but is it going to relate to the rich Bloodraven backstory? I think not.
Maybe just a smattering, maybe like a very summarized version of his backstory, kind of like what we got with Maester Aemon.
Exactly.
where we got his, tragic background, but we only got like a taste of it, whereas in the book we got, much more thorough explanation. Maybe something along those lines. That's kind of the pattern they seem to have.
Yeah, I think I would be surprised if they make the connection of him to the Targaryen dynasty.
Certainly as a man of the Night's Watch.
Yeah, he's got the black robes on the trailer. We see that, so, or the black garb of a brother. So that's got to come up. He's got to mention, he used to be in the Night's Watch, etc.
I really don't think Dark Sister. I really don't think the show, cares much or has got time to care about things that would, be quite orgasmic for the book fanboys like us.
I agree. It's the thin hope, very thin, thin Valyrian steel blade hope.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, but staying in the north. We have this question. How do you imagine a grand northern conspiracy will play out on the show, given what we know so far? I'm not sure if casting is fair game here, so forgive me if it's not. It is, just so you know, that's one of the things it is, whereas leaks or anything like that are not. Also, that the person whose question that is, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to massacre it.
Kieran O'Hagan,
Okay.
I think, or Kieran. Yeah, Kieran. He told me how to pronounce it, and I've already forgotten.
That's why I was turning it over to Aziz.
Anyway, as far as answering the question, rather than worrying about my bad pronunciations, it's a good question. And the thing about the Grand Northern Conspiracy is that it isn't just one theory. It is a set of theories that work together, none of which depend on each other necessarily. Some theories, if you disprove one part of it, the whole thing comes tumbling down. Grand Northern Conspiracy isn't like that. But for a more thorough explanation, well, Lady Gwyn and Yoko, you guys have done a lot of work on the Great Northern Conspiracy. Grand Northern or Great Northern? Which is it? You guys have an episode that you put out fairly recently on it, so why don't you give us some of your thoughts on this?
Well, it certainly seems like some of the elements of this conspiracy are coming into play, and that's based on casting news mainly. We've got these Northern Lords cast who I think Small John Umber is confirmed, possibly a Karstark and maybe one other. So that definitely indicates that we're going to be seeing a real uptick in the Northern family's involvements. A Northern revenge plot.
There's plenty to get revenge for.
Yeah, I certainly see it playing out that way. Maybe not exactly the way we think it's playing out in the books, but
there might be a little more angle to it in the show since it's the different ordering of things. There might even be some, masterless Southerners that used to be in Stannis' army. Surely not everyone died, and a few of them might want revenge too now because this is, if they're going after the Boltons. Well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Northerners may not love Stannis' people, but if they're going to help go after Bolton, then hey, that could work.
Right, definitely.
Another question related to this is by Karen Chavez. Are the Umbers replacing the Manderleys?
I hope we see the Manderleys.
Yeah, I hope so too.
As Lady Gwyn mentioned, there's at least one other Northern family that's been cast and it wasn't named. It could be the Manderleys.
Yeah.
I don't suppose they'll just make up a new Northern family. That'd be crappy. They've mentioned the Kerwins. That's the one that Ramsay flayed because they didn't pay their taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they could maybe use them. They've certainly got reason to be mad, although it sounds like most of them were killed off. So.
I think we see a Hornwood banner somewhere?
Oh yeah, the Hornwoods. That's right.
So it seems like they're going kind of deep. I mean, the Kerwins and the Hornwoods are. You really have to be kind of into some level of detail about the North.
And this is a little bit of a surprise too, because I think a lot of us, because we think our heads are geared in the books once we saw that the battle was going to happen, the Battle of Ice was going to happen without any sort of Northern plotting going on. We thought, I guess they just skipped past all that. But now it's just they're doing it in a different order. And hey, I don't have a problem with that. I think it could work. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and see what they do.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's move on, I suppose, from conspiracies and on to this question from Nina Friel of Wars and Politics of Ice and Fire. What do you make of Jon fighting in what looks like Ned-style armor outside Winterfell?
Well, first of all, we can't be sure that's Jon. That's the big caveat. And we aren't sure that it's outside Winterfell. But if it's outside Winterfell, ooh, that's interesting. If it's some other area in the north, well, it's still really interesting, especially if it's Jon. But if it's Jon, not in his Night's Watch garb, well, that strongly implies that his watch has ended. He's not in the Night's Watch anymore. He's been freed from his vows somehow. A lot of the legal technicalities have been discussed over the years as to how Jon could get out of being in the Night's Watch, and, well, maybe the show is going to go that way.
I think the strongest is that, when they die, they say now his watch has ended. Like you say, it sounds like a technicality, but it might be technicality enough to get Jon out of his vows. Mm-hmm. And then, we're just talking about the northern armies and the GNC, and part of the GNC is that Jon could be legitimized.
Yeah.
And that could be brought into the fold in taking on the Boltons or something similar like that.
Yeah.
He would certainly have reason to be there. What would, there's certain things that would trigger it, perhaps something along the lines of him finding out that Sansa's around, something like that, or just, there's a lot of things. I mean, you don't really need to look hard for reasons to want to go after Ramsay Bolton.
No.
And I would point to, I think it was last season, Mel had these visions. Now, they've handled visions and prophecies really poorly on the show, I think. That's one of my gripes with it. But, it's still worth paying attention to what Mel said. She pictured herself walking along the castle, the battlements at Winterfell, didn't she?
Yeah.
There was Bolton banners burning. So if these, unlike a lot of our other visions, if these come into fruition this season, that's really interesting if Jon's there as well.
That's true. And, yeah, to the burning Bolton banners, you can still see that. We know there's going to be a big battle. You can certainly, wouldn't be a big surprise to anyone to see them lose that battle. Wouldn't be a big surprise to see them win it either. But I think probably we're going to see them lose it. But that's just my guess. And the Walking the Walls of Winterfell, I think that's really important. I think Melisandre is not wrong about all her visions. She's been wrong several times. And we see her admit it in the trailer. It's her first moment of doubt. We've really never seen her express doubt before. So Melisandre's going to get interesting too, I think.
Yeah, and the relationship between Jon and Mel. I mean, if she's involved in the resurrection, which I think we'll probably be talking about later, but I mean, what does that do for the relationship between those two? And are they going to, team up to some extent now?
Yeah, and with Davos in the mix too.
Yes, and there was kind of flirtation on the part of Mel last season. Is that going to go anywhere? Which will horrify Jon fans, I'm sure. But it's still worth thinking about. This is the one that found a way in Stannis' bed.
It'll make them pine for Ygritte. Like, no, we like the other redhead.
All right, let's move on from, I guess, redheads to pink letters.
From red to pink.
Yeah, Anthony Hargan Jr. asks, do you think the pink letter will be addressed in the upcoming season? Should I go to Yoke Boy first?
Whether he likes it or not.
Well, this freeze frame, I don't know if all your watchers have noticed, but if you freeze frame, it does look like Kit Harington is on horseback in this big battle, as we just covered.
Either that or someone with the exact same hair.
It's the lovely hair, the curly black hair, yeah.
The hair that is the most watched hair in Hollywood.
So that does kind of imply something of the sort. So I doubt it's going to be like for like with the pink letter, but some kind of catalyst to spur Jon on for sure. I think that's a good possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, then I think you covered that pretty thoroughly. I don't know that any of us have any extra thoughts.
One thing I could add to that is if it's not the pink letter, it could be something similar, some sort of trigger, some sort of taunt, some sort of impetus for Jon to go south. It doesn't have to be a letter. It could be a piece of someone's body. It could be I could send him a piece of skin. Ramsay's certainly not averse to that sort of thing. In a lot of ways that it could come out. It doesn't have to be a letter, but something that plays a similar role to the pink letter.
Something that gets him to that "I'm coming for you, bastard" moment.
This bastard
some news on Sansa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And real quick, some of you may know this already. It's recently revealed the first episode title is The Red Woman. So I think we know where episode 1 is going to start. We may just immediately get scene 1 may just be right back to Jon, right back to the wall, the immediate aftermath, rather than maybe we'll see something over here first and over here first. Then we'll get back to the wall eventually. We might just go right back there. First scene, first episode. I'm kind of predicting that.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that's it for that. We'll move on to another question, another repeat question. Who do you think is the burning man on the cross? And I'll tell you who I hope it's not, which is Rickon. I don't think it is, but that is what one of our bullet points says, and I really hope it's not.
Yeah, there were some photos of the set way back many months ago, and they were really far away, and it kind of looked like a wolf's head and a small body, but hey, it's really far away. It's hard to tell that it's a small body, and the wolf's head, it didn't really look like a wolf's head to me, but it looked like to some people, and I got to agree, I don't expect Rickon to be killed off like that, off screen necessarily. It would stink, but Rickon's got to be accounted for somehow, but I don't think it'll be in this way.
Yeah.
Stannis is an interesting possibility. They could find Stannis' body and string him up. I don't know if that would taunt the Northerners that much, but...
Probably not. I don't know. That was my first thought when I saw that was, oh my God, they're burning Stannis. They've flayed Stannis. Talk about adding insult to injury. So
yeah,
that would be quite poetic, though, wouldn't it?
That's
burning. You burned your daughter. Now you just it's just your body, so he's not suffering. But another possibility is some of these newly cast Northern Lords. Maybe one of these guys, tries to fight back against the Boltons and gets caught, and this is what happens. Since the battle scenes also show wildlings fighting in this army, they are displayed quite prominently. It's potentially some wildling. But I don't know who it could be because we see Tormund in the battle, and we're really running out of identifiable wildlings. I know who that one is. No, there's Tormund,
right?
And I honestly can't think of any other off the top of my head besides Gilly, who's obviously not going to be around in that area.
No.
So it's probably not a wildling. It could be a new wildling that we get to know, and then is killed at the end of the season.
Like they like to do.
Any other guesses on that? I think it's interesting that we can narrowing it down. There aren't a lot of options, but of course it could always be someone fairly new.
I have no other guesses.
I guess you throw in Brienne just for the hell of it. I don't think it is her, but
Brienne and Podrick.
I did mean to say that.
That's awful combination. Those two.
Yes. No, I don't want to.
Please no.
I'd rather it's Rickon.
Okay, everyone out there, now consider on your own which would you rather see: Brienne flayed and burned, or Rickon flayed and burned? Talk about the.
It has to be Brienne and Podrick together.
Okay, Brienne and Podrick, or Rickon and Shaggy Dog.
Yeah, Rickon. God, awful.
That's awful.
Okay, let's move on to
the choice no one wants to make.
Another death question.
All right. Death questions.
From Wilkins75. Assuming that Jon comes back and that R plus L equals J is true, how will Jon and others in the show learn about it? We know Bran will learn by seeing it, and so will the viewers, but what about Jon himself, Sansa, Littlefinger, and everyone else? Yeah, well...
I thought I remember Yokeboy, you having some good thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, the viewer can learn about RLJ via Bran and things like the Tower of Joy, but if you think about it, it can't just be a theory that's there for viewers. It's got to come into the story and live its own life, in story, and have some kind of impact. So you can't just rely on Bran to deliver it, because, like I said, that's really for the benefit of the viewers. So again, like in the books, we're looking around at characters that might have been there, the Tower of Joy, or that would know somehow. So again, you're looking at people like Howland Reed.
Could, just for the show purposes only, could they have Mira, suddenly reveal that she has got some knowledge her father gave her?
I think that's
It's
possible.
still going to be, yeah.
I think that's possible, and I think it's possible that Bran finds out, tells Mira, and Mira heads out and is able to transmit that information.
So she's still onto it.
To build on what you said, it could be that Bran sees something in a vision, and Mira, that reminds her. She says, "Oh, actually, my father told me a story that ties into that."
All right, maybe they work in the Night of the Laughing Tree story somehow.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And the only problem with that is, who's going to believe Mira?
True.
Who's going to believe that her story? If she has Dark Sister, maybe.
Maybe if she found her and Mel found Dark Sister.
We're really reaching there, but we're holding out hope for the sword being in there.
This is why someone like Howland Reed is very appealing, because it's someone that will actually be believed, whereas if it's rooted in old stories or secondhand stories or visions, it's not going to really pack a punch in story, is it? It needs to come from someone that was a witness or close to it.
Unless it's a combination of, a vision or a dream that Jon has while he's, somehow some connection with Bran while he's sleeping or warging or whatever, and then this external corroboration by like Mira or somebody. I just don't see how they're going to get Howland Reed to the wall out of nowhere.
Maybe it could also be Mira goes to that's her impetus for leaving, to go talk to her father about it, not just to go carry news, but to go corroborate it with her father.
Right.
Yeah, we're trying to find a reason, something for Mira to do. Yeah, we don't want her to, end up like Jojen paste. They killed Jojen already, so Bran's gonna eat her.
No.
Please, let's not do that.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to move on to another Jon resurrection question.
All right.
From Michelle Carey. Do you think the show and books will resurrect Jon in a different way, or that his character will undergo different changes in the two media? We got a few questions like this that I'm going to answer. I'm not going to read them all out loud, though.
Yeah, we have also similar questions from Matt Rees and Catherine Cronin.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about these as a group. Basically, I think they'll do it a little differently. It could be a lot different, but I think whatever happens, it'll be like a lot of things. We get maybe a little less detail on it. We're not going to see inside Jon's head like we might see inside the books.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think, the way it affects Jon is really interesting, because I'll read a passage from the books. This is about Second Life, okay, from Varamir. When man's flesh dies, his spirit lives on inside the beast, but every day his memory fades, and the beast becomes a little less a warg and a little more a wolf, until nothing of the man is left and only the beast remains. So what it's saying is, if Jon is inside Ghost in Second Life for quite a long time, his brain is going to start to mix with his direwolves. And so if he's resurrected, he'll be kind of more feral and more like Ghost, like take on an aspect of Ghost personality, maybe a bit more aggressive, something like that. That seems to be what I think in the books, the path that it's going. Whether they'll actually show Jon change in the show is another question. They might just have the same old Jon. I don't know if they're going to have Kit acting differently or change Jon's character. What do you guys think?
I tend to agree. I don't think they're going to change him a lot. I don't think he's going to just like have corpse paint on or something and be like a zombie Jon. But along with what you're saying, though, if he comes back a little like feral, a little more wolf-like, it's set up nicely the way the ordering with the show has done things, because if he's going to get taunted by Ramsay or something that entices him to go pick a fight, well, if he's a little more aggressive and feral, well, that kind of fits with that. That would line up kind of nicely in a way that it actually doesn't line up in the books. I mean, not that Ramsay's taunting isn't sufficient in the books too, but it comes before he's killed, so it sets it up a little differently. It's kind of interesting.
Right.
And the other possibility that I think a lot of us are worried about is whether or not Ghost is going to be killed throughout this, whether that's going to be part of the resurrection, whether it's, necessary for him to die, to come back. Only death may pay for life.
Right. I mean, we ran a poll last week, and almost half of our listeners are very concerned for Ghosts, or half of our respondents. So I would put myself in that category of pretty concerned.
Yeah, I mean, if John's inside Ghost, I mean, there's got to be some separation to get him back to his body. So that's the key thing, isn't it? The separation. Is that procedure something that requires the death of Ghost, or can they just be, their spirits be pulled apart and kind of put back in John's body? But like you said, only death may pay for life. That wasn't really the case with Thoros or anyone. So.
No, it's true. Beric didn't. No one else died for Beric.
Beric, sorry.
Yeah. So, and Beric just passed it on to Catelyn himself. He, Thoros raises him 6 times, and then 7th time he just, hey, I don't want this. I'm going to give it to. He just did that. I don't know how that works.
So would it be accurate to sum up our opinions by saying we're deathly afraid for Ghosts?
Oh God, it would be.
But is that all our thoughts on there?
Say so, yeah.
All right. I'm going to move on then to a nice Rickon question, a little happier subject from Anthony Hargan Jr. Do you think we'll see Rickon, and will he have a role to play in the upcoming season? Well, first of all, Art Parkinson and Natalia Tena were spotted in Belfast at a restaurant during the filming season.
Snacking on Mira. What a restaurant that was.
And also, Natalia Tena said she was rereading Game of Thrones, which is always nice to hear that a cast member reads the books.
Yes. Rereading, even better.
Yes. So it's pretty likely. We already thought it was likely, but considering that, it seems like we'll definitely see them.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't Gendry we're talking about. You can't just throw away a Stark and forget about them. Well, Benjen. Excuse me. But Rickon, yeah, he's, I think, I would really bet heavily on Rickon coming back, even without those details, which almost seal the deal, I think.
Yep.
As for what he'll do this season, that is harder. Hopefully not, as we talked about earlier, burned at the stake.
No.
Ramsay.
Well, let me get back to the Grand Northern Conspiracy thing we were talking about. We do recall that Rickon and Osha said they were going to go to the Last Hearth, to the Umbers.
Yeah.
So if Small John Umber has been cast, I'd say there's a pretty good chance that's
Yeah, Rickon is not on Skagos in the show. He's presumably with the Umbers, and the Umbers are being cast.
Right.
Can you imagine the Umbers showing up and not Rickon? That just doesn't sound
right. No.
Question for you guys: Would Rickon and his contingent be against John and his little crowd, or you think they'll have a team up?
I had not considered the possibility that they would be against each other.
Depends on what John's point of view is right now. I think if he's got the same exact personality as the John we know, then he'll definitely be on Rickon's side. I think. I think he would definitely. But there's always a chance he'll be somewhat changed, or Melisandre will have some sort of enchantment on him. I don't know.
It's interesting too because the Umbers are traditionally hate the Wildlings as much as anything because they're right there at the border. They get the Wildling raids that come from beyond the wall. The Umbers are hit hardest by that.
Good point.
So that's a problem. That's a very big problem. Now they also hate the Boltons. So I think that if it's a choice between fighting for the Wildlings against the Boltons or with the Boltons against the Wildlings, I think they would rather fight against the Boltons, but they might just rather not join either and kind of do their own thing.
So this could be a three-way kind of. Which we talked about in our when we talked about the GNC in our episode, the possibility that you get different Starks as different candidates,
Rivals.
rival candidates, right, with different lords. So, could Rickon be supported by some and Jon be supported by others? Then there's always the Sansa factor.
You never think of the Starks as a family that would be in that kind of conflict situation, a succession struggle with each other, but it would be interesting to see it.
Well, I don't think that they themselves would put themselves in that position. I think it's possible that other people try to use them, and so they're unintentionally kind of placed in these very difficult, so now what do we do?
Yeah, Jon thinks Rickon's dead.
Exactly, so he would never...
I don't know if Rickon's aware of Jon, and he probably would have heard that Jon was stabbed. I mean, that news probably... Right. You would expect that news to get to Last Hearth. It may not get all over the Seven Kingdoms, but Last Hearth is not far from the wall.
North. Right. So they could all be mutually thinking each other dead and be supported by different lords and meet in this kind of like, oh my word.
Okay. All right, I think that's pretty well covered. We're going to move on now to a question by Catherine Cronin. The show seems to have foreshadowed the importance of books and texts in Samwell's arc. Will any significant lost knowledge be unearthed by Sam in Season 6? And if so, what do you think it might be?
Great question. Really like that one. Well, I'll start. I'll say that I think that the knowledge Sam is going to look for, I think yes. I think he's going to find some things in Old Town. I don't think his entire purpose in going to Old Town is just to maybe witness a faceless man, which I'm not really I don't think that's that likely to happen in the show, but if it does, well, that would be something. But I think the more likely thing he's going to witness is Euron's invasion, which I think is a lot more likely to happen in the show, especially as we know he's been cast and all that.
Yeah.
And so would that really be the whole reason he goes to Old Town, just to watch Euron arrive? I mean, this isn't the book. We don't need a POV there to see that. They can show us whatever they want through whoever's eyes they want. So I think, yes, I think that the narrowing it down, the only other thing he could be doing there is learning knowledge. What do you guys think, as to the second part of the question, what kind of knowledge might he find?
Well, we think, I think we talked about this, that he's going to gain some important sort of mystical knowledge, Sam the Wizard quote from the books, that in the books he may learn to use glass candles, or who knows. So definitely I agree with you that he's got a bigger purpose going to Old Town.
Something to do with the White Walkers, maybe?
Yeah, it would have to be something of that magnitude, like some serious knowledge that's going to help, the greater story, and especially the Night's Watch, because he is, after all, a man of the Night's Watch. So
right.
I would say something to do with the White Walkers for sure.
But you would expect it to be very late in the season, maybe setting up, something that's going to happen next season, because what we know is he's going to Hornhill first, so he's going to have that sort of part of the arc with his family.
I don't think he's going to go to Hornhill, go to Old Town, see Euron's invasion, and get back to the Wall with lost knowledge all in Season 6. I mean, heck, unless he borrows Littlefinger's teleporter, then, hey, anything's possible.
That's true. Yeah.
I kind of agree with you there. I think that he's going to find the lost knowledge, but either it's not going to be used until next season, or he's going to find it right at the end of the season, or something like that. It might even be the last thing that he does this season.
That's what I was just thinking. I could just see that being kind of like Sam's ending, like a big aha light bulb kind of moment.
I got to go back to the Wall!
To
the Wall!
On that subject, then, do you think we'll see an attack on Old Town this season? And do you think that they would line it up so Sam finds this information? Oh no, Old Town's being attacked.
Oh, that's a great idea. Right at the same time, he learns of it, and then.
But I thought we were going to see it this season, and I still generally think so. But I'm a little more doubtful because we have such a big battle clearly going on in the north, and I think maybe they'd keep it for next season.
That's a good point.
But I don't know.
Well, it's a really good point. Although on the other hand, to balance that out, we should point out that the show's budget has really grown. They got about $5 to $6 million per episode when the show started, and now it's about $10 million per. So that's almost double the amount per episode. So I could see them affording two battles. Maybe not two Blackwater-sized battles, But you can tell their budget's been upped. I mean, for one thing, all these the trailers have shown us one thing that we haven't seen a lot of in the battles. We saw them, but not as much. Horses. We saw some horses. The more the show has gone on, the more horses they've had. We've seen a lot of early season stuff where there were no horses, where there really should have been horses. Like, where are the horses?
Right.
And in the last season, there were certainly horses in Bolton's army, and the season before, there were horses in Stannis' army. But they were just, you could see them in formation riding. You didn't see them, like, in the thick of it. You didn't see horses, like, actually falling. And like, so they're now, it's, I think, it's a little something to look forward to. I think they've upped their game. They've got more money. And it looks like they might be spending it pretty well.
Right, so I'm going to ask my question to Lady Gwyn and York Boy. I'll go with York Boy first. Do you think we'll see a battle in Old Town this season?
I'm 50-50. I really can't decide. It would be towards the end of the season, if so. And like you said, there's likely to be a huge battle. That could be one that takes up a whole episode, like Hard Home did. So it's a difficult call. I'll sit on the fence and say I've got no idea.
Lady Gwyn?
I could see it maybe, depending on where this other battle in the north is positioned in the season. Perhaps towards the end of the season. Or
maybe we just see the ships coming.
Right, maybe just the threat of it. It's about to happen, and then Sam has to run away with his important knowledge, or I don't know.
And he would have to. That would actually be interesting if he now all of a sudden finds he's like, I got to get out of here. I got to go to the wall on ship. Oh wait, I can't take ship.
Right.
I might have to go by land. He's really going to need Littlefinger's teleporter then. Even that's the lost knowledge he finds. How to operate the teleporter.
Okay, let's move on then to our number one upvoted question.
All right.
From Corky94. How do you think Lord Commander Jaime will react to the new Kingsguard? You know, the big quiet one who was recently added to Tommen's 7, since he may or may not ever have to deal with that in the books.
I don't know who he's talking about. I choose violence. That's my favorite line of the trailer. And, I'll let someone else start with this one.
Yeah.
Big surprise that Cersei is reckless. Okay, I'll go. I'll say that we did discuss this between ourselves, and we were talking about how, with Marcella's death and breaking the news to Cersei, that he might have other things on his mind. It might sound strange, ignoring the 7-foot elephant in the room, but it would be a good way to kind of get round Jaime thinking about Robert Strong, for him to be too embroiled in the issues that he has to face coming back from Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, even if he does ask Cersei about him, I don't think she's going to answer, because she's going to have this Marcella,
She's going to blame him.
She's going to be blaming Jaime. It's not like they're going to be on good terms for sharing confidences. Their relationship is not going to be on good footing. So
that's true. And if you think about how it's handled in the books, everybody just kind of looks sideways at him, like no one talks about it. They're all like, "What do we?" Because in the epilogue of Dance, Kevin thinks about it. He's like, I'm pretty sure I know who that is. Pretty sure Mace Tyrell knows too. Pretty sure Randall Tarley knows who that is too, but no one's talking about it. Because let's be honest, what good would talking about it do? Like, that guy's undead.
Right.
Okay. What do we do now?
We can't expect any of these guys to admit that they believe that a corpse could be reanimated.
Yeah, they're all this can't be. It just doesn't. It just doesn't compute, even in a fantasy
worldview.
It does not fit. So
some of these are the same people in the books that would have laughed along with Tyrion when he made fun of Sir Alistair's, white hand that he brought down. Laughed at him for that. And
very firmly non-magical thinkers.
Yeah,
so I don't. Yeah.
But you have this blue-faced dude that doesn't talk or eat or go to the bathroom. And, I don't know.
Yeah, so who will fight for the faith in Cersei's trial by combat? Is the next question by Thunderclap.
Thunderclap. Well.
Popular
choice seems to be Lancel, but I repeat the line, "I choose violence." In the trailer, it looks like there's going to be a confrontation in that scene, and Lancel is heading it. Yeah. So is he going to even survive that encounter to be around? And if he does, is he really going to be like, "That went well, I'll fight that guy myself"?
Again, right.
Again. He killed all my friends, but I can handle him on my own. Yeah.
That's possible. I think the trailer could be misleading.
Yes, you're right.
And lead us to Lancel being the one, which I think is likely in the books. He's one of two possibilities in the books. But there's always the Loras possibility that we talked about, where maybe it could be a way for the Faith to offer Loras kind of a pass out, which would be a win-win for the Faith. They either get rid of Loras or they get rid of Cersei. So.
Yeah, they say, "Hey, Loras, you can, you're going to be executed unless you, join
fight this guy."
Right. Yeah, and I think when we were getting this ready, when we were kind of going over some of these questions, we looked at some of these in advance to kind of think about them. Some of these that have been asked live, we haven't. But in this case, one thing we thought about was the Marjorie is seen bowing before the High Septon, and that's got some of us thinking that maybe Marjorie, to get forgiveness, she, takes some sort of vow, some sort of gets into the faith, something to prove to the High Septon that she's, faithful now. Not only would that have an effect on Tommen, because Tommen's smitten with Marjorie, so if Marjorie becomes faithful, then Tommen might too. That's a whole other story, though. Also connected to Marjorie, of course, is Loras. So if they offer that same deal to Loras, then they could do it together. It would be the Tyrells with the Faith. The Faith would obviously love to have a powerful ally like that. Loras, it would bring back the ability. It would get a showdown, a re-showdown, Gregor versus Loras, which goes back to season 1 and the jousting incident. I wonder if zombie Gregor remembers that. He's like, "Oh, that's that guy." I've been wanting to get him for a while.
It's a good question about zombie memory.
But the other thing there is, who else could it be, right? You said, Lady Gwen, you pointed out that the other character that it could be, I don't think you said him by name, Theodan the True. I think I accidentally called him Talib the Tall in another episode recently, but I meant Theodan the True. But there's obviously no Theodan the True in the show. So.
Right. So
Loras may seem far-fetched, but we bring him up just because of Lancel and who else? Like, who else could it be?
Yeah, they're really the only two, but named, unless it's somebody who's completely unnamed or unknown yet, which seems pretty unlikely.
Yeah, and if that there's probably not a lot of tension in that fight anyway, because you just don't expect Robert Strong. I don't think they've actually given him that name in the show, but we'll call him that because everybody knows who that means. I don't think he's going to just go out quickly. It would be pretty weak for him to his first fight, and he just loses. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's kind of disappointing. So whoever it is probably going to get slaughtered. So that's one reason why it might just be some random, because we all know it's going to be whoever it is toast anyway. But if it's actually Loras versus Gregor, I have no idea what would happen there. Loras would probably lose, but
what if I just had a terrible thought, because we talked about what would be Tristane's role in King's Landing.
Tristane versus Sir Robert Strong.
That would be so terrible.
Because it would mirror the Oberyn Gregor fight. That's total crackpot off the top of my head. But
it reminds me of, it actually calls to mind the line that Bronn had in episode 5 or 6 when they go to steal away Myrcella, and Tristane goes to reach for his sword, and Bronn says, "Don't do anything stupid, boy." Yeah. This would be far stupider.
Right. If it's like, "Oh, I want to prove myself to you, Cersei, that I really had nothing to do with your daughter's death. I'll fight for you." Oh,
oops.
Awful. Well, let's hope not.
A good way for Dornish Lannister relations to get even worse. Like, how many of our princes are going to die in trials by combat up there?
By the same guy.
To that guy who was already dead. Like, what the heck?
All right, let's move on to another King's Landing question from Ingrid. What influence will Kevin Lannister have on the future of King's Landing, as he's still alive on the show and might survive for quite a while, as Varys is busy in Essos? Could he keep things together and slow down Cersei's destruction? Well, the trailer seems to show a little something right there.
It does show a little something. We did some freeze framing, so our trailer analysis is perhaps a bit more thorough, and some of you might not have caught this, but there is like a split-second moment of an upshot. You can see the ceiling and some very short people with daggers. Look like children. So, yeah, I think that Kevin's getting it this season, maybe towards the end of the season. But this is still a great question because the Varys part, right? How could that be Varys? One, it kind of has to be Varys because it's little birds. It looks like these little kids. But on the other hand, how could it be Varys? Does he also have access to the teleporter?
Yeah, Littlefinger could get from Winterfell to King's Landing.
Can he send? Yeah, can he send these orders from afar? I mean, we know the little birds can read because they steal secrets by reading them. But I don't know. This is odd. Maybe he like halfway through the season, he's like, "Hey Tyrion, I'm out. I got to go back to King's Landing to off Kevin." You know,
gotta go do something. I'll be back in a couple episodes.
Last season, we predicted the possibility of Kevin's death, and we thought since Varys was in Meereen that maybe it would be Littlefinger that kills him. But Littlefinger doesn't use the little birds.
No, if it was little prostitutes, I would. I'd find out.
All right then, we figured it out.
Very short.
You heard it here first. Little bird prostitutes are gonna off Kevin.
Funny. Well, I guess that covers that question, but we'll move on to our next one, which is related to the chaos in King's Landing. It is from Fans Mar. If the king dies, who will take over? And this is a great question because in the books there's a little more option.
Yeah, it could go to Myrcella.
It could go to Myrcella, but Myrcella's dead, so really when you run down the list, who could it go to?
It couldn't go to Stannis either, you know.
Yes, Stannis and Shireen are gone. And
Literally,
Gendry hasn't been seen and isn't even known to be a bastard. But one question was floated around in an interview with Julian Glover, Pycelle, where he said that there was a running joke on set for a few weeks where they said Pycelle would be king. Interesting. My theory is Pycelle kills Kevin there with the little birds and becomes Grand Maester.
Pycelle knows a few things about little birds. He works with the ravens. Oh.
I think Gendry is going to row into King's Landing with a crown on his head.
With huge arms from all that rowing, and they'll be like, "That's definitely Robert's son." But to answer the question more seriously, there is no one. There is no there's no next in line that's obvious. And whenever in a situation like this, whenever there's a question of who would be next, if there's never a clear answer, the answer is war. It's whoever, it's the strongest. Whoever sits the throne next will be whoever takes it. It won't be, oh, it's yours now, and everyone just says, yeah, it's theirs now. Because there is no easy answer. So there'll be a lot of people saying it should be me, or there'll be people saying it should be this person. There'll be multiple claimants. I have no idea how the show would handle that. And I do think Tommen's going to die, but it might not be till next season. It might not be until, say, Daenerys is closer in a position to maybe take it herself, or someone else is. Maybe if Jon comes all the way south somehow. But really, it's a great question because there's not a great answer, and it really makes you think. Although I don't think it makes you think of conclusions.
No.
Our next question is somewhat related to this, though, so we'll continue on to another question from Corky94. Forget a Dornish master plan. Do you see any move Doran can make now that the show literally wrote in an assassination of Myrcella? I don't see what he can do now, aside from call spears and secure borders. Yeah, he can just try to support one of the candidates, which there's not a whole lot of candidates out there now either.
This might be the segue to him being on Team Dany. You know, he's not going to want to. The Lannisters aren't going to want to have anything to do with them. He's going to have internal problems because he's going to want to. This could lead to what happened, a semi-parallel to what happened in the books with him imprisoning the Sand Snakes. In the books, he did it preemptively. Here, he's got. I mean, Ilaria spoke out of turn to Doran, and he was like, if you talk to me like that again, you're dead meat. Well, okay, so they killed Marcella, so that's a little worse than talking back, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I don't know that... Go ahead.
No, we pointed out last season that not only did they kill Marcella, but they placed Trystane in an absolutely impossible situation.
Yeah.
So Doran is obviously not going to be pleased with them because his son is in danger, and where that's going to go is
anyone's guess right there.
Yeah, anybody's guess. I mean, is he going to take the kind of Quentin role and end up being dead? You know.
It seems like the early part of the season is going to be a lot of people reacting to important characters dying at the end of last season. Stannis, Marcella, who's the other? John, obviously, yeah. So there's all these big situations there. It's all going to be around that. That's the early episodes. There's going to be a lot of everything's going to revolve around that and the fallout from those things, and then new stuff, I suppose.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the next question, which is also related to this very subject, from Unifriel again. How, if at all, will Aegon's likely The Winds of Winter, A Dream of Spring storyline be adapted for the show? No actual Aegon, of course, but his Stormlands campaign, possibly Dragonback duel with Daenerys? And, well, this ties into what we were saying before about maybe Trystane, maybe Gendry taking up some of this role.
Yeah.
We had some other thoughts. I'm not sure who wants to talk about this subject.
Well, as far as another possibility, because he's actually been introduced, is Euron. I don't know about Euron in the Stormlands, but Euron getting a dragon, that's already possible in the books, if not semi-likely. So it could be that is what we see. Maybe Euron versus Dany in the Stormlands or somewhere. Maybe it doesn't have to be the Stormlands, but they could parallel what's happening in the books in the Stormlands in a way. But I don't know. It's hard to tell because this kind of thing has to be between large factions. It can't just be some random dude stealing a dragon. And these other factions that aren't in the books or that aren't in the show, you can't guess them. Like she says, it can't. Obviously, there's no Aegon the Sixth around. But someone else is. The dragons are going to be in play somehow.
So we're going to move on to the next question, which is also related, and suggests someone, which is from Michelle Carey. Do you think we'll see a Westerosi prince killed trying to steal a dragon? My vote would be on a Greyjoy if it happens. Tyrion might have the opportunity, but has too much plot armor. I think we agree that he has plot armor.
Yeah.
And
maybe Trystane could get killed like his brother in the books trying to ride a dragon, but it would be in Westeros instead of in Marine.
Right.
I don't care about Trystane, but I don't want Doran to go no heir.
Yeah, that
would drives me crazy, the very thought of him doing that. And the same with the Tyrells right here with Loras. I just one son only for
these families needed to have more children.
Should have at least mentioned them,
Yeah. But I do think, again, Euron stealing a dragon, I think, is not unlikely, but maybe more to the point, without having it happen in the same way of the books, the dragons could get free without someone dying.
Yeah.
There's a lot to suggest that Tyrion will be the one to do that. Simply, again, with the show, a lot of times we can use process of elimination. Who else is going to let the dragons free in Marine? I mean, Varys, I guess. Sandy, Grey Worm, why? Why would they do that? They're too loyal to Daenerys for that. They wouldn't.
Right.
I don't think they would do that. But Tyrion, he knows some things. He thinks he knows about dragons. He might feel the need. He might. So I think he might be the one to let them go. I don't think they're going to kill him. So we could just skip the whole someone dies in the process of letting them out. But I think they get loose.
He lets them out. There is that one brief clip in the trailer of Tyrion with his little torch looking into, you just get this him looking at something, and my thought was, there go the dragons.
I don't think he's stealing food from the larder.
One or the other. Tyrion, you could go either way.
That's the problem they've had in Marine now. The Sons of the Harpy have just, stolen all the food, so Tyrion and Varys are hungry. And
They need a midnight snack, so they get their go down to the bowels of the pyramid and look for.
Yeah, the trailer didn't show us any shots of those other dragons. There were several shots of I always want to say Balerion, but Drogon,
Yeah.
several shots of Drogon.
Some shots of some actiony things in Marine.
Yeah, there's like an explosion, like a window blowing through that almost sort of looks like the Marine throne room there, and maybe that's like a dragon related or something. But there wasn't any fire, so I don't.
Right.
I'm not sure what to make of that. But one of the only things that came to mind was dragon
So
dropping something.
More dragon questions here. From Thunderclap. Will we see Rhaegal or Viserion being ridden this season? If yes, by who? And then the next question here, which I'm also going to answer right now, is from Person123. Do you think that Tyrion will eventually be connected to Viserion and maybe ride him? The Golden Dragon. Is he the third head, possibly a Targaryen? Would the show do that? Maybe Jon will ride Rhaegal, named after his father, and of course Dany on Drogon. You know, we're all familiar with these sort of theories. So, do we think we're actually going to see that?
Well, I think it would come down to kind of what you said about the budget earlier. And how hard would it be for them to show other people riding dragons if they're already going to be doing big battles, and Dany with, Drogon and introducing that again.
That's a good point. Yeah, they can only do so many things. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't think that if it would happen, I don't think it would be this season at all. I think it would be, I guess, next season or the season after. I don't think we're going to see anyone else riding a dragon besides Daenerys on Drogon, potentially.
This could be a good way to end the season. Tyrion, I'm going to go get on that dragon. End of season, or at least his last scene. So, yeah, there's a lot. That's just one of those opportunities maybe for a cliffhanger or a wing hanger, scale hanger. I don't know. Now, as far as the possibility that Tyrion is a Targaryen, I think it's a legitimate possibility in the books. I really, really don't see it happening in the show. I just think that would be so random. There's been no setup for this at all in the show. Some people don't think there's much setup for it in the books at all. I think there's some, not necessarily enough to be confident, but enough to consider it a possibility. But in the show, I really don't think so. Really don't.
No, it's too much backstory would need to be conveyed, and they're already struggling with RLJ, kind of trying to get up to speed with that. So. And
unlike the books, they haven't made any sort of, you need blood of the dragon to ride a dragon. There's none of that talk in the show at all. They're not bound to that. So the books, you kind of have to, we kind of get the sense that not just anyone can ride a dragon. You may need to have certain genetics, who knows exactly, but it's not straightforward. But the show hasn't touched on any of that, so they're not bound to any of that. So they can do what they want. They can just have it be, hey, I tamed this dragon. Tyrion knows what he's doing, and that's it. That would be fine. That would be acceptable as far as what the show has set up and how they've done it. I think that's the most likely.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that's sufficiently covered.
Think so.
Everyone agrees? Okay.
All right, folks, thanks for sticking with us. We're a little past the halfway point here. Keep the questions coming. Hopefully you guys are getting the questions answered that you want, but there's plenty more time if you haven't.
And we're going to switch gears from dragons, move on to Sansa.
Wolves.
From Karen Chavez. Sansa, pregnant or not? That's my thought.
No. That's all I've got to say. No.
It's one of those things that's kind of too gross to consider, but I also say no. I think we all are going on the record with no here. One thing occurred to me that I think is pretty remote, but it's worth throwing out there in case you're one of the people that thinks this is possible. I'll give you some reason for optimism if you were hoping for this. I don't know why you'd be hoping for this, but if you just want to be right because you think it's your guess and you want to be accurate on this, want to have called it, well, I'll give you one piece of evidence that might help you. Way back in 1993, when George R. R. Martin was first coming up with the idea for Game of Thrones, the original script, or outline rather, called for Sansa to have Joffrey's baby, and to have that be a really tough choice for her, to which side am I on? Because in the original manuscript, it was far more Stark versus Lannister. That was even more of an emphasis. So it was going to be a big defining moment for her to choose her family or her new family. And I don't see that happening on the show. But if it does, well, it was something that George had in mind a long time ago in a different sense, because we talked about it when it happened, that once Joffrey died, immediately Ramsay took over center stage as the kind of psychopath that you're supposed to hate, that guy.
Right.
And so they're similar in that regard, the characters. So yeah, I still think it's a long shot, a very long shot. But there you go. There's your hope to cling to if you think it's true.
Alrighty, then that one's answered. We'll move on to this question from David Gobert. Will the character of Septon Maribald be written out and his dialogue be given over to the High Sparrow, since D&D seemed to like the tactic of having one character represent a multitude of smaller ones? Well, seems that they will do a little bit of that combining, but they'll be combining the elder brother and Septon Maribald, played by Ian McShane.
Yeah, Ian McShane from Deadwood. Of course, Ian McShane kind of stumbled out of the gate there as a member of the cast by putting out a spoiler on TV, which, since you guys are all book readers, it's not really a spoiler to us. He basically said he'd be bringing somebody back. So that gave away who it was.
Who he's going to be, yeah.
We all know who that is. Yeah. So it wasn't really a spoiler to us, but I felt bad for the show people. Are like, what? Because people were going to talk about it. People, they probably figured it out. Some people did. So I really hope we couldn't possibly get both elder brothers, men floating down river, dead men floating down river. They're all the same no matter what, insignia they have, versus Septon Maribald's broken men speech, which is one of the best pieces of writing in the entire series. I think we'll get some sort of combination of those two. Like he said, like David says, I think we'll get something along those lines, but it'll be McShane's character and not the High Septon, or High Sparrow. Same thing. So I think for once we have a very straightforward answer here. There's not a lot of guesswork involved here. I think we actually know the answer.
Okay. All right. Then now let's move on to here's one of our top questions right now.
Okay.
From Sam Karpman. This is the first time he's catching us live. Well,
thanks, Sam.
Yeah. What do you think of the possibility of the Freys this season and Nymeria's wolf pack crushing them? Well, we will be seeing the Freys. That's been confirmed, and we sure would like to see them crush.
Yeah, I would love to see Nymeria
Obviously,
return.
we haven't seen any Nymeria spotted on set. That's me CGI.
That CGI wolf was spotted on set again. It was really odd, actually. Yeah, go ahead, Yorkwood.
I think Nymeria has gone the way of Quaithe and Azor Ahai in this series. They've just vanished into thin air. So I doubt it very much.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the Riverlands. Well, we're definitely going to see the Riverlands. It may be with Arya there, but with Nymeria involved, I don't know. They just really haven't set this up at all. They haven't set Nymeria coming back into Arya's life at all. She hasn't had the visions. It's not too late. She could start having the visions this year, maybe while she's blind. That would be a good time for it. Your other senses are supposed to be stronger when you're blind, and so maybe that's the trigger for her to start developing her own latent warg abilities. That would actually be kind of a cool way to do it. And we know this is when we talked about last season, her prayer was reduced to 4 names last season. Walder Frey is one of them, along with Cersei, the Mountain, and Meryn Trant. Well, Meryn Trant she took care of in the most gruesome way possible. The Mountain's, well, he's kind of in a middle category in terms of whether he's been taken care of or not. He certainly suffered. And Cersei, who is, I don't see Arya being able to go after Cersei anytime soon. So Walder Frey is the last one on her list, and we know that that's just not a random name on her list. In the books, her list is long, and we know she's not going to be able to get all those names because the list is too long. But in the show, they pared it down almost to a way where it kind of gives away a little bit what we can expect. Because she cut Melisandre and Thoros and some other names from her list. So they're not going to be involved with her, I don't suppose. But this, yeah. The only question is whether or not Nymeria is involved. But Arya going after Walder Frey, I think that's pretty likely.
Yeah. Hey, remember in season 3, Melisandre met Arya and said something like brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, you're going to shut them all. We will meet again.
Oh, you're right.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do now. Yeah, so maybe I wonder if she'll add Melisandre back onto her list. That'd be kind of a giveaway. Or maybe if Melisandre's helping Jon out, she'll be like, "Oh, you're helping my brother."
Yeah, conflict.
Yes, that would be interesting.
All right, let's move on to a little bit of an open-ended question from Wilkins75. Do you see any marriages taking place this season? If so, between who?
I don't think we've had a season without a marriage.
Yeah, but I'm not sure who I think we'll see. There's a lot of the marriages we might have seen, we won't see now. Maybe I don't know that I see Sansa remarrying this season, or
Yeah, it's hard to
Tommen's
imagine.
locked up. In marriage, but his wife's locked up.
Trystane gonna remarry somebody? Who? There's nobody.
Yeah, he was only betrothed, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. They didn't even actually get married.
That's a hard question.
I want to say yes because there's always a wedding, but I have no idea who.
Well, Dany.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ironborn.
His daughter is
Dany to Euron or something. You're right. That's actually kind of obvious in retrospect. But that could be. But, I almost feel like that won't be this season, but it could be.
She has to get along. There's a lot of stuff has to happen.
Yeah, she's all the way in the Dothraki Sea, which my boy Victorian Greyjoy thinks you can sail on.
He tries to sail it.
Yes, I am wearing a Victorian shirt in honor of his non-presence in the show, which was entirely predictable, but still kind of unfortunate for us Victorian fans. Maybe a little bit. Maybe Euron will have a little Victorian in him.
Yeah.
A big axe or something.
I think we might see, a wedding in that play.
Oh, yeah, the play, Arya's play, the Mercy play.
Yeah,
so a fake wedding.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only options I can really think
reenactment of the Purple Wedding.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll move on.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That's a great question, Sarah. We can't make any strong guesses besides Daenerys there.
Yeah. Okay, here we go from Anthony Ferrugia. What will Littlefinger do this season? Littlefinger, gosh, yeah. He seems to be popping up all over the place.
You never know where he's gonna turn up.
For all we know, he'll be in Dorne, the Vale, and the North all this season. I wouldn't put it past him, honestly.
Well, he's almost entirely absent from the trailer, so it makes it a little hard to guess. But he is standing in snow at one point, which means he's either left King's Landing or there's snow in King's Landing. But he's out in the wilderness, so I don't think it's King's Landing or near King's Landing. So he's either arrived in the north with Valemen, maybe. There's some thought to the possibility of the Vale soldiers arriving in the north to be part of this huge battle that may or may not involve them. It would certainly fit. Certainly something that Littlefinger alluded to with Sansa, saying, hey, they'll come rescue you, etc., blah, blah, blah. His grand plan that is a little strange. But, yeah, we talked about the possibility of him maybe being the one to kill Kevin, but the whole little bird thing doesn't really fit with that. I don't know. It's really hard to say. This is one of those things. We're past the books, and Littlefinger's already really hard to figure. You guys just did episodes on Littlefinger. Maybe you have some extra insight here, or are you just as
Well, yeah. I mean, what you said, I think, is what would likely happen, because that would be in line with kind of what we expect, that he's going to show up in the north, and that the Vale army is going to be involved, which would also imply that maybe we'll get to see Littlefinger back in the Vale. And I don't know if there was any casting news that supports that, but
Jan Royce is confirmed for this season. So
right, okay, yeah. So he could go from King's Landing to the Vale, or maybe he starts there. At least that's a kind of logical next step if he's going from the south back north, and then end up, if that scene is really the north, that could be where he ends up trying to save Sansa, or who knows.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, predicting what Littlefinger do, even Varys can't predict what Littlefinger is going to do. So come on, how can you expect us to?
Right. Well, and one thing that it's important to remember that Littlefinger wouldn't have predicted that Sansa and Theon ran away. So whatever is happening there now is kind of outside of his plan. So he's going to have to be making, alternate plans to deal with that.
One thing we can say for Littlefinger is he tends to not rely on any one thing. He tends to have plans within plans. He's able to adapt along the way. So I don't think he's going to be caught too off guard by any of these developments, but the one thing that could catch everybody off guard is, say, White Walkers, coming
White
in.
Walkers.
Ruining the Vale army just like that. Like, oh, damn.
Or maybe he can't find Sansa. Maybe like, here's your Vale army. Wait, Sansa? Where'd you go?
Let's move on then. Let's talk about some Meereen stuff here. From Lucas Persek, I'm sorry, I'm sure I massacred that. Will Euron or Ashayara head to Meereen this season? What are they going to replace the siege of Meereen with? Well, we know they're still dealing with the Sons of the Harpy, for instance. I feel like that could be one big issue for them. And Daenerys is in the Dothraki Sea.
Yeah. I hadn't considered this, but since there's no Victarion, Euron, in the books, as we know, Euron sent Victarion to get Dany. What if he sends Yara instead? The only thing we get
of ladies the whole way there.
Yeah, Yara. The one thing we see of Yara in the trailer is her making out with somebody, which is you can't really glean anything from that. I mean, making out with a girl.
I guess.
Just can't really.
I guess my thought here is that I just don't think she's that tractable. I just don't. We don't know what her relationship is with Euron. They can just change it and make them really tight with each other.
Yeah, they don't have to hate each other. It's true.
But I can't really picture Euron coming up and saying, "You're gonna go get this queen for me," and her being down. I can't really picture her just making out with women either. So I don't know.
But there we are.
Yeah. I mean, if they're gonna have a king's moot and they don't have kind of the other characters, she's going to be the one in conflict with him, you would think.
Right.
I
So.
was expecting.
Yeah. So I don't know, if she's going to.
But one thing's for sure, that definitely needs a fleet, because you're not going to have any kind of volunteer fleet, are you? Dany needs a fleet to get to Westeros. The Ironborn have been brought in. The logical explanation is that, that Ironborn are going to go there to some capacity. Dany is probably going to unite the Khalasars, have 100,000 Dothraki. She needs the transportation very badly.
I think that's a good point, but I think they're also setting up the, Red Temple here, and potentially that'll be her ships, that they'll provide it for her as their savior.
There was always Dario's mention of stealing the fleet of Meereen, which, that was just like a one sentence and done, but that could be relevant. But we also didn't think at the time that was enough ships, nearly enough ships, so. And it hasn't been mentioned again since that one line, so I like the idea of the since you're right, the Red Temple and the Volantines, maybe not the Volantines, but the Relorists.
Yeah, we know they're sending a high priestess, so I have to think they willing to invest something into Daenerys, given what they've been saying. So this is a bit of a segue out of what they're going to replace the Siege of Meereen with. I think what we've settled on is that we don't know that we're going to see a Siege of Meereen.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a Siege of Meereen, but there will be maybe just the chaos of the dragons getting loose, combined with the fact that the Sons of the Harpy are a much bigger danger in the show than they are in the books, it seems like. Yeah. Instead of just a shadow army, they're like a real army.
Yeah, it's just this real terrorist thing this ongoing threat.
So what about Grayscale? What about did Jorah Grayscale to Meereen?
Well, that could be a parallel to the Pale Mare. I mean, he certainly had it. I don't know if there's any indication that he could have passed it on. So while he was there, but
I don't know. I guess I don't quite think it's gonna be an outbreak in Meereen. I tend to think Westeros. So I personally will go on record. I don't think it's gonna outbreak in Meereen. But here's another Meereen question. What will Varys do in Meereen? Seems like they're gonna be hunting out those Sons of the Harpy, which is pretty important, and dealing with the Red Temple and sending his little birds to Westeros. I don't know.
I think his main role will be to help with the Sons of the Harpy. That's but I would have expected that to be. If you had asked me last season, I would have thought that was just going to be all Tyrion, maybe with some help from Missandei and Grey Worm. But with Varys in there, yeah, it's a whole different bag. But I do kind of expect Varys to not stick around Marine.
Yeah.
Although I could easily see him staying because he may as well just come over with everybody else. But then there's the whole little birds thing.
What do you think Varys thinks about those red priests?
Yeah,
he can't like sorcerers.
He does
No,
not.
he does not.
He does not like that. That's a great point.
Yeah.
So he won't be very happy with that.
Okay, let's move out. Let's move out of all this Marine talk then. A little more open. From this name. I can't say it. I don't know how to say your name, dude or dudette. They ask, what do you speculate will be the main event in the final couple of episodes of the season? Well, one, we're going to see that northern battle. We think that'll be towards the end. We'll see that Night's King thing towards the end.
Some sort of White Walker action, Night's King action.
Some murder in King's Landing.
Yeah, Kevin's thing. Well, the murder of Kevin may happen at the end of the season, towards the end of the season. I could see that happening earlier.
I see Arya and Westeros arriving.
Yeah. It's hard to predict, say, what the end of the season will be like for, say, Brienne. That's really up in the air. But I think Arya, we can kind of guess that coming to Westeros or maybe killing Walder or something like that, or starting on a quest to kill Walder, or just like she ended the season heading to Bravo, she could end the season heading to Westeros. That would be kind of cool.
And like we said before, maybe we'll see Sam in Old Town and Old Town being attacked, but not see the battle, just the threat of the battle.
Yeah, just like a big bell rings, and he's like, "What's that bell?" And like, "Oh my God!" You see all these ships coming.
And I guess maybe we think the Robert Strong fight would be earlier in the season. I'm just thinking of main event, big events. Any other thoughts?
Maybe if the Melisandre are walking on the walls of Winterfell, if that does happen, that could be end of the season kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some other ideas. If we went through every plot line, we could probably make a guess for each one, but that would be a bit lengthy process.
Yeah.
We would like to answer some other questions. That's a very good question. Thanks for that.
All right. We got a lot of questions about this Dawn question, so we'll answer this one. Also from Anthony. Will we see Sir Arthur Dayne wield Dawn at the Tower of Joy?
Well, in the trailer, there's a dude who looks pretty handy with a sword. You'd think he would be Arthur Dayne. I say a sword, he's actually got two.
Yeah, he's handy with
two swords. No, I don't think we're going to get Dawn in this story. I mean, it's only mentioned like 3 or 4 times. It could end up being big news in the main books. But like I said with Dark Sister, they've got no obligation to stick to these more nerdy parts of the story. They have a difficult job enough just, getting the main story down. So little details like this are disposable.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sword, though, one of the 2 swords that this guy has appears to be white. So I thought...
Does it?
I thought so.
A little bit, yeah. It kind of looked a little white to me, but I thought it could be just the angle and the
It could be,
lighting.
yeah, but
I think it's just the angle.
Yeah. I thought it definitely looked different from all the others, so which would be not Dawn, because obviously Dawn, as it's described in the books, wouldn't be up, one-handed.
Yeah, I suppose they could change that.
But
they could
kind of maybe a nod or something that
Yeah.
Oh, he had a really cool white sword.
Speaking of this dual-wielding Kingsguard from the trailer, it's probably Arthur Dayne because Arthur Dayne was cast, so if that's not Arthur Dayne, then the guy we don't see in the trailer is even more badass because the casting call was very specific. They want a guy who's a legitimate, real-life, expert swordsman, and that dude swinging 2 swords is probably that guy, right? I
mean, I think so.
And it looks like this might be a 6-on-1 rather than a 7 versus 3. Typical paring things down a little bit for the show. You can't blame them too much for that. Of course, we'd love to see 7-on-3 with Oswald Went and Sir Gerald Hightower, but we can't really expect that. We didn't think we'd get Tower of Joy at all last season. So let's take what we can get.
What do you guys make of the lack of white cloaks?
Yeah, I guess that's just a show thing. Maybe they don't look as good.
Cloaks are silly. That's what I make of it. I think they don't work.
Especially
Someone
at Dorne.
grabs you and pulls you. And,
You get night you need in Dorne, but yeah.
I think of The Incredibles.
I was just going to say that. Did you ever see The Incredibles?
Yeah, it's true. Capes maybe not the best thing for fighting in. Walking around looking fancy, they're great, but in an actual fight, not so much.
Yeah, made me think of that new Star Wars trailer, the Rogue One trailer. Had that guy in his white cloak.
Yeah, that's right. It's like
guard.
light gray, white thing. Yeah.
It was seeing white. Anyways.
Okay, so to answer the last part of that question, yeah, I don't think Dawn is going to play a role in the show. They've already shown that Valyrian steel can just slice right through another. And Lightbringer has hardly been talked about. Azor Ahai also not really. So it's just not the show. It's just not how the show is doing things. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see Dawn, but yeah, I don't expect it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, there's still a huge amount of questions here.
Yeah. Apologize in advance. Anyone whose questions don't get answered, there are definitely too many to go with here. We've just got to stick with the ones with the most upvotes.
Yeah, we recommend you get in early. I guess I'll ask this one.
Yeah, this is a good one.
From the real Peter Man.
Not the fake Peter Man.
What will be Theon's role in the show's Kingsmoot? I don't know if he'll have a role.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be part of the Kingsmoot.
I think he'll just hand wave. He's not hardly mentioned at all or something.
Are we even sure that it's going to be a Kingsmoot? It might just be Euron kills Balon, and because we see him on the bridge there, which I think anyone who's read the books saw that knew exactly what it meant. And so there doesn't have to be a decision. It could just be like, you're next. Euron, he just says, I'm king. I'm the brother. There's no, Theon's not around. Yara's there to maybe even corroborate that. Like, yeah, he's technically alive, but yeah, no, he's not Theon anymore. Yeah. So I hope we see a Kingsmoot, but I kind of think they might just go straight to just coronating him. Is that the right word? Coronating him? And just go from there. Mm-hmm. So either way, though, yeah, I don't think Theon will be involved at all.
Yeah.
Not really.
Because I think it'll be early in the season, and Theon's still fleeing from the castle and the bolt in the snow.
Yeah, it would be hard, unless they did it and Yara was there to be sort of the opposition to Euron and say, my brother still lives, or something like that. Just to keep him sort of there for the thought of him around for whatever happens.
As a stop against Euron somehow. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, we really don't know how they're going to do Euron. Like we're kind of since we're book readers,
gonna be like,
exactly. We just default to his book personality, but we really don't know that for sure. By the way,
we already know he doesn't have an eye patch, for instance, and we don't see him with any purple black lips or.
The casting was so spot on, by the way. Our unsullied co-host Sean, who we do the Monday episodes with for show only watchers, when he saw the trailer, he thought that was Theon. He's like, "Was that Theon?"
So did I. Yeah, the first time I saw it, I thought, "What? Theon's pushing his father off a bridge?" What?
So great job again with the casting. That's something they just repeatedly nail is the casting in this show. It's something you just can't say positive things about. Yeah, Nina Gold, who also did the casting for.
Gold again. Yeah.
She did casting for Force Awakens, right?
Yeah, she did.
She is on fire.
I think she won a big award in this off season.
She deserves it.
Yeah.
She deserves it.
She does. She really kills it.
So his name is, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Pilo Asbæk. He's Danish, I believe. And I watched a few trailers that he was in for movies he's been in. He's been in some war movies. He'll be a good Euron. I don't think it's going out on a limb to say that.
Mm-hmm.
He was also really excited about the casting. He himself was like, "What? So, how does it feel to be on Game of Thrones?" He's like, "Fuck yeah, I'm Euron Greyjoy, Ironborn." Gotta love that. A guy who's actually fired up about his character and all that. So, another positive.
Let's see. What question now? Here's a good question, something we haven't touched on.
Your dead pet's ghost.
From your dead pet's ghost. And this is related to people being pumped up. The Sand Snakes were pumped up about their characters, and they were probably pretty disappointed. The question is, do you see the Sand Snakes having a big role in the story for Season 6? And honestly, I kind of feel like they might just hand wave it, and we might not actually see them dealt with. One, it was received really poorly, and if they can hand wave it and not have us see them, that'd be good. But two, we just haven't heard any announcements about Keisha Castle Hughes, Rosabelle Laurenti Sellers, or Jessica Henwick, and I don't think they'll be in it.
I don't think it'll be completely hand-waved, but I think it'll be very minimal, and I don't think they'll have a big role. I think it will be that they're on the run now. They can't just be out in the open, so And I think you're right. I don't think that the showrunners expect people to be interested in the Sand Snakes running away from Doran as a plot line. Mm-hmm. So I think that gets us back to the possibility that they get locked up in the towers, kind of like they do in the books, just in a different way for a different reason, but kind of for the same purpose. And that will nicely remove them from the story for a while.
That would be the perfect way to do that.
Yeah. I definitely don't think one of them is getting sent to King's Landing like in the book.
No.
Or the two of them, rather.
Oh, you did such a good job assassinating a Lannister princess.
Too late for that now. Yeah, like we wanted to kill these Lannisters, and well, they're all dead already. Dang it! See what you get for waiting, Doran.
All right. Let's see. All right, let's move on to this one from Seamus McMonkey. The show is arranged for Jaime to be present at the death of 2 of Cersei's children. Is this the season Tommen bites the dust? Is Jaime present and Cersei blames him? Well, we talked about this a little bit. I don't think any of us quite think Tommen's gonna, die this season.
If he does, it'll be end of the season too.
I think we also in general think that Jaime's leaving, and so I don't think we'll think. I think I can answer for all of us and say we don't think Jaime will be there.
But I do think that Cersei will blame him.
Yeah, she will.
blamed him for Joffrey, and that's really, really not his fault. And it's because you weren't here. That's why it's his fault. You should have been here to protect him. It's like, yeah. I was busy losing my hand.
Yeah, so I think he'll be in the Riverlands, and I think, I actually think that's good news for Tommen, and that he'll make it out to next season.
Yeah, I think we as a group probably expect Tommen's death is more likely next season.
Yeah.
Which could mean Jaime is back for it. That's one thing that could come back around. I am looking forward to Jaime in the Riverlands because we get the Cooper and Darnell show again. That's going to be fun because it does seem that Bronn is going with him again instead of be Ilyn Payne in the books. But Ilyn Payne makes for a very poor traveling companion in the show because he doesn't talk. So Bronn, meanwhile, is Mr. Banter and Mr. Singing along. Yeah, he's far more entertaining.
Singing, yeah.
Well, let's move on then to another question from your Dead Pet's Ghost. What do you think Sansa will be doing after her escape? Anyone want to answer this one?
I hope she won't be being caught again.
Immediately after probably rubbing some feeling back into her legs for that.
Right. 7-foot drop. I think she's going to seek shelter with one of the other, will she try to head to the Wall, or will she seek the Last Hearth? Reunion with Rickon?
That'd be amazing if she goes to Last Hearth also and finds out that Rickon is alive, because she doesn't know Rickon's alive either.
Right. Or does she go to, what other Northern Lords were cast, maybe a Karstark? Does she, do they do something completely different with the Karstarks in the show? And she goes there to the Karhold and sets up this kind of three-way,
I think she does know that Rickon's alive.
She does?
Theon told her.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, you're right. That didn't sound right when I said it. Yeah, she does know. So she would maybe be thinking about that. Of course, her first thing is to, not get recaptured.
Not get captured.
Seeing her brother is a luxury. But that would be one of the first things she would want to do. And that is, that's a great point. Yeah, I did forget that.
Okay, I guess we covered Sansa. Here we go from Dornish Dan. How will the Iron Bank recoup its massive losses? Stannis, Robert, Joffrey, etc.? Could Sir Rob Zombie be the ultimate repo man?
Sir Rob Zombie.
That's funny. Wow. That raises the question we've talked about before: is what's Braavos' opinion gonna be on Daenerys in the show?
The Mace Tyrell is there still. He might be thinking it's time for me to get the hell out of there. My bodyguard was just brutally murdered. Maybe I should be leaving. But Mace is one of those guys. The way they have him, he was kind of like.
I'd like to see him stick around for that play.
Mace of Base. Oh yeah, see the play. That would be amazing.
Watching it, I don't know. I love Mace, I do.
That actor's great. But yeah, I don't know. I think it could get ugly there. I think that maybe haven't quite gotten to that point yet because, I mean, Mace is still negotiating with them right now. Maybe they're going to tell him, look, man, we're done giving you all money. But on the other hand, they want to back the eventual winner because only the eventual winner will pay them back. So they have to, it's imperative that they back the eventual winner.
Mm-hmm.
And right now there is, like Ashaya says, the eventual winner could be Daenerys. But are they aware of that? I mean, I'm sure that they have heard of Daenerys, but are they going to back her? Are they going to?
Yeah.
That's a really tough call. Because of course they are anti-slavery, and so is Dany. But they have that history with dragons, which is a very negative history with
Very
dragons.
negative.
So
Yeah.
I don't know which wins out there.
Well, they had the history with dragons when they were being used to facilitate slavery. So it wasn't actually the dragons they had a problem with. I don't think it was the usage, which, as you say, falls on the side of Dany because she is anti-slavery.
That's a good point.
It's an inversion.
Yeah, if she's using the dragons to free slaves, that should be they should like that, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to this question from Matt Ainsworth. Will we get to see Big Bucket and the rest of the mountain clans? We need badass mountain men with quotes like, "Let me bathe in Bolton blood before I die. I want to feel it spatter across my face when my axe bites deep into a Bolton skull."
Well, maybe that line is going to be, or something like it, would be given to one of these other Northern Lords, and maybe one of these Northern Lords could be, like rough and tumble clansman type, like they kind of go down the middle, a sort of clansman-ish. But I mean, these Northern Lords, you don't have to. It's not a stretch to make them scruffy and badass.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Anti-Bolton. So I don't think we'll see specifically that, but I think we'll see a lot of more Northerners because we're going to see multiple Northern Lords. We'll see some of their court, some of their champions, maybe some of their sons and daughters, and there'll be some anti-Bolton sentiment. And if they use that line, well, yeah, why wouldn't they? Because it's a great line. I mean, I could easily see them not using it, but
on the subject of that line, what would be a satisfying death for Ramsay? I'm going to say Shaggy Dog rips him to pieces. That's my pick.
Yeah.
But I'm not really a brutal person like that, but that's what I want.
It would be fitting for maybe
I would say his own dogs would be the most poetic.
Yeah, well, that's how we see it in the books, but I would accept a direwolf.
Yes.
Just a different kind of dog. I would accept that.
Any dog.
Yeah.
One
Sandor. For Sansa, a dog is going to kill Ramsay.
One remote possibility that we saw mentioned was that the burning bodies on the crosses were Roose and Walda because Ramsay wanted to usurp his own father. Now, the one problem with that was a couple problems with that. One of the main ones being that wouldn't taunt anyone other than other Boltons, and why? So I don't know why Ramsay would want to do that, but it would be interesting if they come into conflict. And I would who would come out on top of that? It would depend on who turned on who first, I suppose, whoever got the upper hand. So if Ramsay turned on his own father, maybe he would lose some of his own support, or maybe all the Boltons would fall in line with him. I don't know. Maybe Roose's death starts the domino effect of the other Northern Lords saying, well, we didn't want to stand up to Roose, but this Ramsay guy, we'll go after him because he's, not as clever as his father. Although he has 20 good men, so watch out.
All right, let's move on, but stay related to the subject. From Lawrence Movima, say the Knights of the Vale, led by Littlefinger, show up during the Bastard Bowl, and we have 3 armies. Who supports whom? Well, I don't think Littlefinger is supporting the Boltons.
I gotta agree.
But
I think he's intended to turn on them.
I think he's supporting whatever side Sansa's on, if he can find out what side she's on.
Yeah. Could be an interesting thing, kind of situation where if he doesn't know what happened. We might have talked about this last season where, do the Boltons attempt to control that information that Sansa has escaped, that they've lost their, big piece of power.
Yeah.
So what if Littlefinger doesn't know that the Boltons don't have Sansa and he shows up thinking, I got to support them? Because it could be interesting.
Yeah, that's true. And of course, if there's these other northern lords, whatever side they take, if he wants to swoop in like a savior, he's going to be fighting on the side of the North, or whoever, the northern representatives, whether that's still the Boltons or whether that's this insurgency group, whoever they turn out to be. A lot of possibilities there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, we got time for maybe one or two more.
Yeah, this one's real short. We have more than two for sure because this one's very short.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's Rocio. Anyways, how much of a backstory do you think we might get about the Tower of Joy? Will we see any Danes in the current storyline? Edric, Darkstar, or some new character? I don't think we'll see any Danes, any current Danes, or anything like that. But I think we might get some backstory about the Tower of Joy from, Bran talking to Bloodraven or Mira about this subject.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think we certainly won't just go into the Tower of Joy with nothing. We won't just get this scene and be like, what is going on? Who is that? Who are these people?
Yeah, I think we'll get, like I said, it would not surprise me if we get that Tourney of Harrenhal, Night of the Laughing Tree story from Mira, which would set up maybe Bran having visions of other things.
Yeah.
On that.
Well, hopefully we do see that.
Yeah, hopefully we get a young Lyanna, where there's apparently a young Robert, but it's a really young Robert.
They're different.
And which obviously isn't going to have to do with the Tower of Joy anyway, but the young Ned, there's like lots of possibilities there as well. But I don't think we'll see Edric or Darkstar. No, I don't think that's going to happen at all.
Okay, another short question from Anthony Downing. How do you think Cersei will react to the death of Kevin? Happier or more paranoid? Okay, I'll answer this. I'm gonna say she's gonna be happy. I think she's gonna be happy, and then she's gonna hit her.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation.
It's gonna make her paranoid, for sure. I think you're right. There may be some that shows what, but I think there'll be a lot of paranoia too, because Cersei is a paranoid person, and all of her family is dying around her. Tywin, Kevin, Myrcella. I mean, she's really gonna fear for Tommen, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one.
It'll be interesting to see if she can pin Kevin's death on Tyrion.
She'll want to. Maybe.
She'll want to, or will she, start looking, giving the evil eye to the Tyrells, Lady Olenna or something, whoever's still around.
All right.
Okay, let's do one more.
One more. Huh?
Let's find one last question. Actually, we can do two more. We got time for two.
Okay. I'm scrolling on. I didn't prepare what our next one would be. Okay, here's a nice one. Will Tycho Nestoras, the banker, be in the next season? I would love to see his role with Stannis in the show.
Well, I think if we're getting some more Mace in Bravos, I don't think we're just going to... Next thing we see of Mace is he's back in King's Landing.
Yeah.
So I do think we'll get a little bit of... Maybe he'll see the play.
Yeah.
Be a play. The play would be a way to get all the few characters in Bravos together in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting.
And that was by Emma Fischel. I didn't say her name. Sorry, Emma. Well.
Any other thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's it. I think it makes sense. So what Mace went to Bravos for a reason. So be nice.
All right. Well, I'm looking for another question, but there's just so many good questions. It's hard to decide.
Who gets the last one?
Yeah, who gets the last one?
Okay, how about that one? That's a fun one.
This one? Oh, cool. This is a great idea. Catherine Cronin, who got many questions in.
Good job, Catherine.
What are you most looking forward to seeing this season? I can't wait for the Kingsmoot. That's from Catherine. Who wants to start?
I'll start because no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to Jon's resurrection. Seeing, I've really waited a long time to see how it will work out in the books. I know it will be different in the show, but I'd like to see the light version of how it's done, and I'm just intrigued about the dynamics and the magic involved. I like that kind of thing. So that's it, Jon's resurrection.
All right, Lady Gwen.
Yeah, kind of a version of that, I guess. I'm interested to see how that all plays out. I certainly hope beyond hope that we get to see some ghost action, some badass direwolf.
That'd be fun.
So I'm really looking forward to that, and the return of Davos is another part of that I'm excited for. So.
For me, it's very simple. I kind of already said it. I'm looking forward to seeing the Undead Mountain in action. That's the old horror movie aspect of this is going to get a little more upscale. Of course, I'm looking forward to anything to do with the White Walkers, seeing more mysteries there. And being, a big history nerd, whatever Sam discovers at Old Town, we're looking forward to that too.
Yeah, I'm most looking forward to all of Sam and Gilly's plotline for a variety of reasons. I'm curious if we'll see them on the boat, or maybe we'll get some kind of Kojimo. I don't think we will, but maybe. 2, Sam's family scene's going to be great and hilarious and awkward and funny. And then, Old Town. So I'm just, all of Sam's plotline, I think, is going to really stand out to me this season. I think that's my answer.
Cool.
I guess also my second choice is I don't know what they're going to do. I don't really care about the Trystane thing, but I also deeply care about Doran not having you there. So I'm too invested in finding out if he's going to die. But
and the return of Gendry, which is
and that.
No, that's probably not happening. But I want that to happen. Let's see. I just want to see how large his arms have become.
He's gonna grow in like the last episode of the last season. What is it?
He's gonna challenge the mountain for largest arms. Like, you may be taller, but I've been rowing.
All right.
Okay, thanks to everyone for tuning in today, whether you are catching this after the fact or not. Thanks especially to those who joined us live, who added questions and upvotes. We really appreciate you participating in the process. It makes it a lot more fun. Of course, we can't cover everything, so we apologize for people who asked questions and didn't get them answered. And thanks to Radio Westeros for joining us. Looking forward to having you guys with us for most of the season. So why don't you guys tell everyone where to find you?
Yeah, thanks for watching and listening today. We're Radio Westeros. Find our podcast at radiowesteros.com and give it a try, see if you like us.
Right on, I know I do. So on behalf of all of us here, the 4 of us, thanks again for everyone, and we hope you're even more excited for Season 6 now after hearing some of these fun questions and answers. I certainly am. I've been fired up for a while, but I'm even more fired up now. And we're excited to have you guys along for the ride with us. It's going to be a long, fun season, starting in, like I said, 15 days. Coming up soon. If you're listening to this later, it's even less than 15 days. So we'll see you guys again during the season. And until then, Valar Morghulis.